Hello, hi, namaste everyone. Pregnancy is a joy and blissful experience. And pregnancy, no surprise, we call it the birth of a mother. While everybody in the family is excited about the confirmation of pregnancy to a woman, it is one of the greatest milestones in a woman's life. As everyone is excited about the pregnancy news for a woman, and although it's a blissful experience that we consider, it is not the same. Not all women experience the same kind of joy and blissful experience. She undergoes a lot of physiological changes and psychological distress due to hormonal variations happening within her. To discuss more about this psychological distress that a woman undergoes during her pregnancy, and especially during this pandemic season, I have with me Dr. Shilpi Reddy, who is a consultant and head department gynecology at KIMS Cuddles, Hyderabad. Hello.
Hello.
Namaste, doctor. Welcome to the show. Doctor, in view of the Mental Health Awareness Month, we are discussing something about mental well-being and mental health during pregnancy. Doctor, pregnancy is a various mix of all feelings, as we know.
Yes.
You know, when there's a confirmation of pregnancy to a woman, husband and all of the family members feel very joyous about it. But we cannot expect the same blissful experience and the same joy in all the women.
Yes.
Due to her hormonal variations, they keep
Yes.
undergoing a lot many emotional challenges and psychological distress. So let us discuss about these mental health, especially in pregnancy, madam.
Sure.
And but before we talk something on mental health especially, let's also highlight something on the current burning issue of COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
Madam, on this particular issue, are pregnant females at higher risk of getting infected with COVID-19? What actually guidelines do say on this?
That's a good question because now its burning issue is COVID-19. When we initially came up with COVID-19, see, it has been there since December. So to India, it has come somewhere around March. So when we went to lockdown 1, that was a time when the ICMR guidelines gave that all fertility centers should be closed in view of we don't know what is the effect on of this virus on the first trimester. So let us not go ahead with all fertility treatments, and there will be multiple visits for infertility couples. So that is not the right time for going for fertility treatments. They shut down the fertility centers. But apparently we have seen a steep rise in the number of pregnancies in spite of stopping the fertility treatments, because couples are together and they are spending quality time together in this lockdown phase. So if you have to talk about coronavirus, and there are other strains of coronavirus, they are not teratogenic in the first trimester. So taking the same path, we should not be having any other newer versions of first trimester problems in COVID positive women also in the first trimester. But we don't know how they are going to react, and outcomes are yet to come, and deliveries will happen only after 9 months. So now first trimester, anybody is having COVID, their response to COVID infection we'll know in the future days. Just to avoid risk of this unknown virus, we have stopped any fertility treatments. Not only COVID is very spurious in its symptoms and all that, though it's a respiratory organ virus coming through nasal secretions, oral secretions, and sometimes the eye conjunctival infections also, we have seen a lot of effects in pregnant women, because pregnancy, the immunity levels are little low, their nutrition condition is stabilizing, some have abnormal eating habits and all, some are anemic already. India, the burning factor is anemia.
Right.
Already in anemia, if you have COVID infection, it is even more severe, because oxygen is required for lung function, for any function of the body, and the oxygen carrying capacity, if it is affected in COVID, so it will doubly affect the mother and the child. So anemic conditions, there are other factors also, immunological factors also, they predispose a little more in pregnant women, in younger children, and age above 50 or 60 with comorbidities. So that is a known fact. We have to accept that. Not only that, pregnancy with COVID situation itself is become very tough, because about their antenatal care. They have a lot of doubts about what to eat, what not to eat, at home challenges. They have to take care of all the previous children home. There are no maids, the family, if there are elders in the house, if husband, so many people they need to take care. A woman just can't skip her duties. So there is an additional load of work on her and her pregnancy together with her hormonal changes. So this is an real situation where it is absolutely more challenging for a pregnant woman. So COVID is not going easy on women at least, and pregnant women, yes, it is little tougher and harder. But now, thanks to the corporate hospitals, we are all open and giving antenatal services and scan services and everything for pregnant women. They should not worry on that ground at least. But yes, additional care for social distancing, hand care, hygiene. When you go out, what you have to take care. All these things stand the same for everybody. If you have lower immunity levels based on your previous history of infections or something, you take immunity boosters, vitamins, healthy food habits, some Indian spices, our cooking techniques that additionally give you that kind of a hype and little bit increase your immunity levels to all these infections.
Right. Thank you so much, madam. And so I understood what from the version that you have mentioned, I believe. So with the existing knowledge on other viruses or the current pandemic of COVID, so what we understand is there is no much information or there is no much
exactly, there is no much information
guidelines on this.
Yes.
So it is only that with the existing knowledge that we predict certain risk.
Yes, and since with COVID, pregnant women with COVID are delivering these days.
Yes.
In AIMS we have deliveries. We had in Gandhi Hospital also a couple of deliveries.
Right.
COVID women in labor and delivery. So we are going to understand the situation as it comes. Somebody who is pregnant, most of the times there is no feto-maternal transmission in the womb. Yes. The babies are not affected. At times we got one article saying that the fetus also got affected. So all these things need a lot of research and numbers are awaited.
Yes.
Whatever said and done, it is going to be the same pathology that is there in a pregnant and a non-pregnant. But in pregnancy, the pathology might be little more, more severe than in the normal person because of the additional load in pregnancy and the altered environment.
Yeah. It means there are quite a lot of uncertainties existing,
yes.
Especially about the status of COVID and
yes,
because
definitely.
there are no guidelines existing. So doctor, putting this COVID-19 little apart, so coming into mental health, how does the mental well-being get affected in pregnancy, or how pregnancy affects mental well-being of a woman?
There are two different situations. Because mental health, if we are really talking about mental health, we have to talk about women who've just got pregnant easy and about women who have just got pregnant a little difficult with some fertility treatments, aided, assisted conceptions, bad obstetric history and all that. For women who have just got pregnant on spontaneously, that was a planned pregnancy and a surprise pregnancy or whatever, their mental health is quite different from the ones who have had fertility treatments. If you have to talk about the normal ones, the first trimester is little tougher going because there are a lot of hormonal changes. The beta HCGs that come in and the thyroid changes, the bodily changes, the nausea, the vomiting, the unexpected, urinary frequency, giddiness episodes, depending on the onset of symptoms. All that they want is tender loving care. So they want some attention because they are the ones, they feel that they're going through these changes, not the husband. So if the husband can just support them in this thing and the right medications or the dietary changes or the daily changes that can alter these symptoms and give her little relief, she'll be very happy with it. And yes, certain women have a tremendous effect of these hormones. Especially we've observed ones with fertility treatments and little sensitive ones with previous miscarriages or bad obstetric history. They're very sensitive in the first trimester. They're a lot more scared than the other woman. Sometimes both of them are scared with the outcomes. And every movement that they make, they're very particular that is this safe or not. They have a lot of apprehensions. Not only these, we have observed them having a lot of crying spells, emotional outbursts, the traumatic episodes, like they fight with each other. Even if the husband has come home a little late, they say, "Why did you come late?" So that's another episode, a full saga episode. So these things are there in the first trimester, and they are ongoing. But yes, to begin off in the first trimester, they're really challenging, because when they come for scans, they're very happy that they see the heartbeat of the baby and all that. They're very emotional. And then for people who have had previous bad obstetric history, they are scared again to go for the next scan. They are with crossed hands, they cross fingers, they wait for that day, and they live in fear. So this is the time when mixed feelings come in, some with a very beautiful emotions and happiness, some with fear and fright and all that. So every woman is different.
So, doctor, you were mentioning that pregnancy, then there are two conditions or two situations that you see normally. One, pregnancy with a normal conception or planned ones, especially in a young females, and second thing is infertility issues. So, doctor, we live in a society where, despite many advancements we undergo in technology, we still have that stigma in society where, in case of infertility issues, female is being centered as a main cause of infertility.
Yes.
Despite men equally contribute to infertilities. So on this stand, what is your take, and how do women feel when they are looked at as the sole cause of infertility?
If a couple reach out for any fertility issues or planning issues, it's the duty of the doctor treating them to tell them that fertility related problems are equally existent in the male and the female. There is no doubt about it. What rise in fertility problems we have seen in females, we have seen double the number of reasons in male also. And not only this, we have an increased trend towards male problems, including sexual dysfunctions, including spermatogenesis problems, including analysis issues, including DNA fragmentation issues. There are n number of issues that we are seeing in men also, because of an altered lifestyle. Because of an altered lifestyle in terms of dietary habits, in terms of obesity, in terms of stress levels, in terms of exposure to radiation, pollution, pesticides, all these environmental factors are causing rapid changes in the sperm. So whenever there are rapid changes in the sperm, there definitely is a huge difference in the normal, the quality gets affected, and male fertility reasons are on the rise. Gone are the days when somebody comes for fertility treatments and you keep evaluating the female. Somebody comes to me, I definitely put a point forward that today, if I'm investigating you, I definitely want your husband parameters also evaluated before I see you for the next visit. Because it is totally indifferent if I see you as a different individual and your husband as a different individual. Because pregnancy needs an equally good sperm and a good egg. So you have to evaluate both of them. And nowadays it's 50-50% that the infertility is there. Together also there is 50%. So definitely the male factor is also playing a major role.
Yeah. So it means pregnancy, as doctor was mentioning, pregnancy needs 50% of female, 50% of male, but we still live in a society where only the female is being centered or looked at as a cause for infertility. I think this stigma needs to be eradicated in the society, as it is also one of the social evils, is what we understand from your talk.
Yes.
So doctor, especially in this condition, what should be the moral support or emotional connect from a husband, especially this infertility issues?
Fertility issues, what we try to tell them is, as a doctor, we will help you deal with any physical abnormalities or structural abnormalities or any biological abnormalities or lab related changes. Yes. If you have thyroid, I'll supplement your thyroid medications. If you have sperm problems, we'll give you something which improves sperm. But together as a couple, what chemistry that you need to have, how you need to talk amongst yourself, how you need to spend time with yourself, how you need to get adjustments in your relationship, and the time required to have procreation is definitely a cause of concern, because however we try to deal with them in terms of management of the medical problems,
Yeah.
emotionally and intellectually they have to deal with their personal space. So personal space issues have to be discussed. How frequently they are having intercourse, how well their bonding is, how is the husband and wife chemistry going on? Do they talk with each other, or do they at least work in the same timings, or one comes in the night and one goes to the night duty at the same time? All these things, unless and until you take history, unless and until you deal with that, a deeper sense of histories, you will never know. And there are people who eventually don't have an emotional connection. So lack of connection, it is not a mechanical thing to happen. So there should be a bonding, there should be a connection, there should be an confidence amongst both of them that they are going in the same path, and delivering a child is not a joke. It is going to enhance their bonding, and they should feel that responsibility before they get pregnant. So what we want them is their emotional connection, their personal level connection is very important before even going to a doctor.
So, well, planning and responsibility lies both on the husband as well, is what you mentioned.
Yes, definitely it is mutual, and if we find any lack in such bonding, we definitely take them towards family counseling. There are counselors, there are psychological help support groups who give family counseling. They find out what is the issue, they find out smaller areas of lacunae, and then they clear, so that before they go in for any treatments, definitely this has to be supported rather than just subjecting to them to some traumatic treatments.
So, doctor, have you come across any of the women with some psychological distress, or if so, what are those mental health issues that they have come up during your practice?
We have had lot of issues in women. The most commonest issue that we see is apprehension. Apprehension, lack of confidence, that can lead to overall depression, and chronic depression giving a very bad quality of living, the negativity that comes with it. They're constantly thinking, and they have bad thoughts, and they're upset, and that even transfers to the husband, the family, the lateral people who are living with them. So all these things make her life into a mess, and there is so much of unwanted information on the internet that they fall into the trap. So internet gives a generalized information, it does not give any tailor-made information or tailor-made sources for that person. Everybody should understand that every headache is not brain tumor.
Right.
It can be a small stress headache, or some less glucose levels, or some power changes. It's like that. So in a similar way, any fertility issue or any issue related to their personal life or sexual life should be treated first from a simple setup. So their thought process should be changed. They can't randomly jump into conclusions and diagnosis. Even doctors don't do that, because unless and until you see a person 2-3 times, take help of investigations and evaluate them, we don't come into any conclusion. Over a screen, if you read something out and take it forward, you are having that problem, that is absolutely bizarre, and that does not give any kind of solution. This is in fact causing lot of apprehension, negativeness, and depression. So chronic depression alters the whole internal milieu. Your cortisol is haywire, your hormones are haywire, you have irregular cycles, irregular ovulation, infertility issues with tubal spasms, whatnot. There are n number of unwanted things coming with unwanted information.
So it means, as doctors, I think the world is also facing, I think this is also one of the concerns where information overload has become the most challenging issue to tackle.
Even WHO now has said that we are dealing with 2 pandemics. One is the COVID-19,
pandemic
and the second one is the infodemic along with the COVID pandemic. Information epidemic. Everybody tries to give their own peace of mind in their own piece of information package that the world is getting spoiled with, not COVID, the other information that is coming with COVID.
But the information that they have, and
Yes.
when we actually observe that information, it is actually their perception or the information.
Exactly, it's a perception, and perceptions can be anything. They are mostly negative, mostly harming, mostly very bad influential. So that is causing a lot of traumatic effect and enhancing the infertility rates.
Yes, perfect. So, madam, as we were also having, we have discussed about two situations of the pregnancy. One is a normal planned pregnancy, and other is, conception after multiple trials of IVF. So, I think the conception after multiple trials of IVF, women definitely consider that pregnancy as very precious.
Yes.
So, how does the journey of their pregnancy go on, and what will be the mental health of the women during the pregnancy throughout?
Most of the fertility pregnancies, the care between the husband and wife is already there because they've gone through a lot of problems, and this pregnancy is very precious. They make sure that they balance both of their emotions and give support to each other. But what we have seen in these pregnancies is a lot of fear. This fear eventually is causing a lot of prenatal depression and postpartum depression because they have a pressure of targets, a pressure of result, a pressure of taking home a better outcome. They are living under this immense pressure and forgetting their day-to-day course, day-to-day activities, day-to-day happiness, day-to-day the blessed events that happen, and they should enjoy that events. They live in fear even if they don't have a baby movement. They in fact come at least for 4 times before they even feel the baby movement. Why am I not feeling my baby movement? They started from around 12-13 weeks when you don't feel your baby movements. So we always tell them baby movements take a lot of time, 20-22 weeks. They even come in that last 20 to 22 weeks 4-5 times to check the baby heartbeat because they're not able to conceive appreciate the baby moments. So this is the amount of stress they're going through. This eventually gives a lot of negative impact on the mother because her stress is causing a lot of negativity in the body and unknown depression that she's dealing with. And even though she tries to communicate with the husband cannot understand it because his comprehension is only with the doctor's parameters. His comprehension is never with the lady's parameters because she is not able to feel. And whenever somebody is tensed, the baby also tries to not move and be in the womb, static in the womb, maybe sleeping, maybe doing any other thing, but they give it as a challenge. So even at 30, 32 weeks, 34 weeks, people come with episodes of lack of movements, and this is tremendously stressful not only for the pregnant woman, even for the treating obstetricians, because we also go into a panic mood. Why is the baby not moving? And we have gadgets to find out baby movements, we find out biophysical profiles, but basic movement of the baby is a comprehensive health phenomena which can assure the pregnant woman. So if the pregnant woman is not assured with the baby movements, how can we assure her? With whatever mechanical parameters that we have, biophysical profiles, NSTs, scans, it's only temporary. She has to live with the concept every day. In such cases, we have seen bad outcomes when she thinks that okay, the baby movement is not there, tomorrow we'll go and check, and when she comes, there's really no heartbeat. So it is so annoying that where is the mechanism that is causing this IUDs? We don't know. So we always tell them, we have a team of people here, the prenatal yoga therapist, the Lamaze child birth education therapist, we have psychological counselors who deal with such kind of cases and give them confidence, give them the right education, give them the right perception that a positive attitude will definitely give positive things. And every investigation report, it gives an assurance that everything is fine. You have to believe that report. and lack of self confidence need to be boosted by counseling sessions. It is not always therapy. Yes, there are extreme cases when we give therapy also in terms of medications, antidepressants, and all that. But good counseling sessions will definitely decrease the apprehension levels, and it should always be the couple counseling sessions and the family counseling sessions, because it is the whole family that needs to give her the support.
Pretty well. So we understand that anxiety and apprehension are the two main features that we generally observe in people, especially with precious pregnancies. So I believe you might also have been experiencing, this anxiety in the higher rates, especially during this lockdown season, as a lockdown anxiety. So what is your take on this lockdown anxiety in pregnant females, madam?
Lockdown has brought a lot of problems to pregnant women because their basic confidence is good antenatal care. And once lockdown is there, they have no public transport to come to the hospital. Not everybody has self transport.
Right.
Not everybody can get their wife in an emergency in a car or a two-wheeler. There are people who depend on public transport, and when public transport is not there, or they are in their hometowns, or they are in a smaller district areas where they cannot commute, they're still living in fear whether everything is all right or not, whether they have to go ahead with checkups or not. And this has increased when they have stopped smaller clinics and smaller hospitals. So that's another negative thing, when they have to go to a government setup and get themselves checked, or their doctor is little far, then how to access and all that. They believe somebody and they cannot go to them. Any other kind of person giving them confidence, they would not accept. They would definitely want their doctor to, give them that confidence. So that's why we've told them in telemedicine, we've told them in video conferences, audio calls, or phone calls, that you don't worry. The important checkups we will do. You can take permission and take your passes and come down for antenatal checkups. If you're nearby, we're going to send you ambulance. You can come in the ambulance, get yourself checked. If there are any emergencies, please do come. Take help of others, the neighbors, or any public transport, or any other police vehicle that is available nearby. So all these things we are trying to streamline. But yes, some have missed on with crucial checkups. Some of them have missed on, good labor support. Some have landed in emergency in other hospitals. So it's all a part and parcel of life. Let us see how we are going to deal with these situations in the future, because now we have got little more relaxation in terms of medical checkups and everything. Maybe you have to just start public transports. They're starting off with the cabs and everything.
Yes.
So might be it is going to be a little more better as a situation and access to healthcare.
Yes. So I think this initiation of telehealth services by the corporate hospitals is now a very very advantage, and is a very good advantage and benefit to many of the people, is what we understand.
Basic problems, yes. But antenatal care is such a thing that there is never a basic problem. All that they need clinical examination. We need to look into the growth of the baby, the scan findings of the baby, the fundal height. Not only that, we need to assess their blood pressures. We need to assess their growth parameters, the weight gain parameters, all these things. It's a comprehensive phenomena, and we just can't take things for granted. But yes, because of telemedicine, some lacunae, especially some emergency lacunae services that are not possible, we are able to enhance them with the kind of support that we are giving by telemedicine and all.
So I think through telecounseling or telemedicine, only that the best that you can do is to offer counseling and reassurance before they land up into any emergencies or due to their psychological distress. So doctor, this is all something in normal patients or normal pregnant women. But how about pregnant women with certain pre-existing illnesses such as hypertension or diabetes, thyroid conditions, or pre-existing PCOD? So what is their mental health, how is their mental health affected during the pregnancy and their journey throughout?
Women with pre-existing illness, there are two categories of women: obese women and normal weight women. Obese women, pre-pregnancy only, we ask them to shed their excess weight. We take them into confidence, put them into lifestyle modification, put them into dietary regimes, all the vitamins, supplements, weight loss, physical exercise, BMI correction. At least they have to come back to BMIs between 25 and 30 if they are obese. Less than 30 is what ideal that they have to be. So a part and parcel of motivated people who have been counseled in terms of diet, the healthy nutrition part, the exercise part and everything. They are all well motivated, well counseled, which is ongoing in the pregnancy. There are a group of people who are not well motivated, who do a lot of gross cheating. They constantly find the same thing happening in pregnancy and landing into complications. So, and the ones with ideal body mass index, they do not have much of the complications associated with obesity. And if everybody has a planned pregnancy, they have their thyroid under control, their epilepsy medications, if they are taking, changed over to safer ones. If you have PCOD, you are on PCOD medications and insulin sensitizers. If you are diabetic, you are already changed on to safer medications. You know what home glucose monitoring is. You know how to check your sugars, when to report when they are having high sugars. You're hypertensive, the basic that you need to know is what is a normal blood pressure, how to monitor blood pressure at home, how to maintain your books. The sugar monitoring and the BP monitoring books have to be maintained well, so that record keeping is a part and parcel of what you have to take things as a systematic thing. Without a record, neither your doctor will know, neither you will know that everything is going well or not.
Right.
And there is nothing called random checking. You should probably check on a very good, phased manner. It should be planned. If you're doing your sugar monitoring weekly twice, yes, weekly once, that is according to your doctor's regime. You have to maintain the book, fasting, post breakfast, post lunch, post dinner. That is minimum of 4 values. Somebody on insulin, pre and post values. So all these instructions have to be well followed. The moment you are good at doing your things, there is no anxiety, there is no depression, there is no worry. Everything is transparent in front of you. What happens in that time, you will know. If there is any alteration, what to do, you will know. Where to reach out, you will know. So they are absolutely confident. And this kind of a woman population have lesser complications, lesser depression rates, lesser psychological problems, because everything is in their hand and their control. Right. So that is what we want. Education of even poorest of poor and uneducated women can be done. Just simple record keeping and a sugar test. The number comes in the machine, just have to write it down. You don't need gross educational skills for all these things. You have automatic BP monitors. Once you tie it properly, you will have the reading, just write that reading.
Recording the numbers.
Exactly. So if you are able to convince people to do these things, then you will have excellent patient profile. They don't have any issues, and even if issues comes, they accept. Even if issues come, they know how to deal with it, where to reach, how to get the treatment done, how to deliver. Everything is so absolutely clear. Problem comes with people who are not following instructions. They tend to have lot of issues with fluctuation levels, non-maintenance of records, haywire values, complications, congenital abnormalities, diabetes related problems, hypertension related problems, preeclampsias, eclampsias, toxemias, whatnot, everything on this earth. They can land into problems because nothing is under their control, because they are not very well motivated. They are cheating with themselves. They definitely land into depression. They definitely land into problems. They land into all kinds of complications, which they don't accept it as their fault. Right. Because they are not cultivating the habit of problem, prevention. They are having they have cultivated a habit of negligence and ignorance. So they are the ones of major problematic value.
So it means attaching a discipline to monitoring their own parameters is one of the crucial.
Pre-pregnancy is what is mandatory, because if you can get them well pre-pregnancy, pregnancy is just a phase, and post-pregnancy is just a phase to follow. So discipline and training has to happen before, or as soon as possible when they are pregnant. If somebody is not following instructions, it means that you have to deal with their disasters. You have to deal as a doctor and they have to deal as a patient.
Yeah. So, doctor, as we've seen, there are a lot of relaxations that were given now, and we also have seen medical institutions and OPDs are now being open in view of the government rules. So, I think people can very safely come down to the OPDs and healthcare institutions to get their antenatal checkups done. So, at this point of time during this crisis and lockdown season, people or women, pregnant women coming down to KIMS hospitals for their antenatal checkups, what do they expect or what should they actually expect?
This is a very good question. Now healthcare setup has been opened. Government has very strict guidelines for seeing COVID patients, seeing non-COVID patients, seeing normal patients. Every small clinic, every small hospital in fact has a set of instructions that they need to follow, that they need to have in their hospital, where they have to see fever patients or symptomatic patients, where they have to see non-symptomatic patients, who can be called into that clinic, who should be avoided to called into that clinic with what symptoms. All kinds of instructions are given. But how practical is it going to be for a hospital to make sure these instructions are followed is just not comprehensible. And we have to, as a patient, you have to take a call whether you are having safety in that hospital or not. Is there a space for social distancing? Is there a space for seeing normal patients and fever patients? Is there a space for availing facility of labor and delivery or any other antenatal care with the normal patients, with the affected patients? Do they have separate areas? All these things have to be well planned. You just can't randomly land into a clinic for antenatal care saying that you've been there already and you can go there. You should know very well that do you have space in between two persons, safety, social distancing space. Is a fever patient also coming to that clinic wherein you will be subjected to a risk? Are you properly screened or not? History is taken from which area you are coming. All these things are absolutely necessary. Are you following the mask, the hand sanitation techniques, the hand cleaning techniques? Everybody in the hospital, are they using the minimum PPEs required? All these things are very important. So, if you are deciding to go for an antenatal care, you have to be very sure whether your fetal medicine department is working, whether the obstetricians are available round the clock, whether obstetric registrars are available round the clock, whether you have services like labor room services separately for two different categories, the affected and the non-affected, operation theatre facilities for the affected and non-affected, the checkup facility for the affected and the non-affected people, a very good screening area where you can screen them and take them separate when they are affected or the suspicious cases to be differentiated from the clear ones. The minimum social distancing norms are followed or not. So here at KIMS Cardinals, we have a very clear criteria for all these kinds of problems. Once the patient arrives in the into the hospital or into the area of the hospital, we have a screening area where you take the complete history from which area you're coming, any travel history, any exposure history, any history of staying in a containment zone, or which zone do you belong to. All this history is taken. Depending on that, you are divided into three different. High risk group has to be sent to Gandhi Hospital or the Secunderabad KIMS Hospital, where you have a standalone building, a separate building for COVID patients with high risk symptoms. Anybody with fever, cold, cough into a separate area where the concerned people will come and see you there itself with the required PPEs. Only clear cut, clean, pregnant cases or clean cut patients will be entering into the system, where into the hospital where you follow the safe distancing and social distancing norms. We have restricted the amount of attenders coming with them so that there's no crowding. Even inside, we are giving you a mask so that you cover your face. We have sanitizers, we have a sanitizing chamber that you can come through so that any dust or anything settles off. It does not, spread to the others. Not only that, once you enter, everybody else is also wearing that mask, the minimum required PPEs that for your, to take you into the chamber, or in the OPDs, the ventilation system, where the ACs are going, which way the air is going, whether there is proper ventilation or not, how you are taken care of, in the procedure rooms, who is taking care, in the protocols, in the scan rooms, when you are giving blood tests, how are the protocols running, where are you taken when you are going for to deliver, anybody with a high risk, where to deliver, all these things, all these protocols are according to government norms, ICMR guidelines. All these norms we are following, RCOG, ACOG, ICMR guidelines have been followed, and including the Telangana government norms, we are taking absolute care for the safety of pregnant women. This is what is the assurance that we give. I still request the people who are going for smaller centers, smaller clinics, to look into their safety and come down to places where your safety is important, because you're pregnant, and anything related to pregnancy has to be taken care with extra precautions. Not only precautions, the whole family is dependent on one individual's exposure to others. So if you are in a safe zone, your family also will be in a safe zone. If you are going to antenatal care at a smaller clinic where every other patient is coming with every other symptoms, if you are exposed, your family is also back into danger. So the place that you go for medical treatment, medical care, be it antenatal care or newborn care or any other care, should be absolutely safe for you. The safety should be in such a way that you are safe, the medical fraternity is safe, in turn giving you the safer non-exposure to any of the high risk factors, you go home safe. So this is what is going to stop the COVID cycle and get a trend which has a falling numbers registered.
So anyway, safety comes first, and
Yes.
as from your version, it is very much understood that at KIMS, safety is very important, and KIMS take is safety is very well taken care at KIMS is what we understood. So doctor, with the number of restrictions and number of safety measures that you have told us now, delivering a baby is very blissful. And when a woman delivers a baby, she would want to share that experience, and she would want to have the joy with all the family members around and relatives around. But with the number of restrictions that you have told me now, she cannot have multiple visitors, or she cannot
Yes.
have multiple attendants around her, especially when she delivers a baby. So especially during this conditions like this, how does hospitals like KIMS give care to foster and how does it foster to give that feel good environment to the newly the one who has become a newly mother?
Yes. When it comes to antenatal care, from the beginning itself, we've made ourselves very clear that we will have only one attender coming into the OPD to take care of the mother or the pregnant woman or the ones who are planning for pregnancy. Anybody. Single attender norm is for the safety of the attender, for the safety of the person whom they are coming for, and it is an absolute necessary to restrict the number of attenders coming to the hospital for everybody's safety, especially in these COVID times. If it is non-COVID times, also we restrict the number of attenders to 1 or 2 at the most. But on the restriction of the attenders when they're going through antenatal checkups, it is very clear that even during delivery and childbirth, there would be restricted number of attenders. It is always that we encourage the husband to be there during labor and delivery. The necessary PPE precautions always will be given to the husband also. And we have a set of prenatal classes, prenatal yoga, prenatal lama sessions, prenatal music therapy, prenatal activities, and all these sessions wherein we give combined therapy and combined exercises to the couple as such. So they are very well accustomed that they are going to go through labor as a couple. So we at KIMS have very clear protocols in terms of giving assistance to the pregnant woman. And once they go through all these Lama's childbirth education classes, the yoga classes, the whole all these things, they are very well in terms of balanced, in terms of what is happening through labor, what will happen in delivery, what will happen postpartum, everything they have a clear picture. So they just go through that with a look through vision as they were told. So we usually don't have any issues. But problems come when there's somebody come newly. We try to counsel them. We try to tell them it is for their safety, the mother's safety, that we take all these precautions. And one gender norm for anything given, that's the best principle to prevent any kind of, extra working people around, so that they will also be safe at home. And all these things take place only with good counseling and taking them into confidence. So this is a part and parcel of obstetric treatment, that we counsel them and they understand the importance. And when it's a joyful experience to have labor and delivery, we even have couples dancing during labor and delivery. We have dance sessions, we have lamas, we have exercise sessions, we have music therapy sessions. We have so many sessions even during labor and delivery. So they all know what they are going through. And we try to make this into a very blissful experience, so that they will remember for the rest of their life.
So it means fostering a feel-good environment happens not just post-delivery, but
Yes.
right from the antenatal case,
Yes.
and from the moment they step into the Kim's cuddles and they take their
This is
antenatal
when,
care here.
this is when we have observed that our postpartum depression cases are less than 1%. Because they go through a tremendous exercise in terms of their, changes in their attitude of thinking, that we make them so positive that we don't have postpartum depression cases at all. Hardly 1 or 2 patients in 100 that we see postpartum depression. That too when they have a lot of anxiety issues as a result of multiple treatment failures and precious pregnancies and, traumatic deliveries and all that. So otherwise, we don't have any postpartum depression cases.
So it means when they are blissful right from the beginning of their
Yes.
conception, so results and the outcomes are quite much better is
The
what we
happiness
understand.
is ongoing.
Yes. So, madam, you were also mentioning something about postpartum depression. So, I think this is something existing not just now, but even during the season where corona was not at all there. So, what actually this postpartum depression is? Who are at risk, and
Yes.
what do we do to treat this?
Postpartum depression is a very complex phenomenon. Basically, anxieties and worries that are there in pregnancy and the trauma of childbirth, maybe it can be pain or time or the process. What happens to a mother is suddenly there is a change in environment. Suddenly she's got a set of responsibilities which are overpowering her personal care. Her dietary habits have changed, her environment has changed, her responsibilities have changed, her medication pattern has changed, and all of a sudden she realizes that she has no time for herself, and it's all in that care of the newborn that is happening. And since she is a mother, she is into a vicious cycle of feeding the baby, taking care of the baby, feeding the baby, taking care of the baby. She all of a sudden feels this kind of a schedule very abnormal. And there are together along with it hormonal changes that is happening, together with it blood loss that has happened, together with it lot of expectations of the family, some changes during the delivery, the postpartum, the expenditure that comes in, every small thing, the gender of the child, every small thing, anything that annoys her, it accelerates a cycle of trauma, overthinking, depression, trauma, overthinking, depression. So this cycle enhances in a vicious way, causing it a small speck into a ripple. So even a small stone thrown into water, it creates
Lot of
ripples.
ripples.
The same effect happens post-delivery. If you're not able to curtail this, if you're not able to give her that positiveness, if you're not able to share with her the baby care, give her some rest, give her some proper diet, give her some right medication at the right time, give her some sleep at the right time. If you can manage her with this external support, be it husband or anybody in the family, if you can give her that kind of an adequate rest and healing, definitely they will not lead into this postpartum depression. So anybody that who's not given that adequate support, or even if given they show resistance, they are these complex psychological problems that lead to postpartum depression. It is at times so severe that we have seen suicidal tendencies, we have seen traumatic episodes, we have seen sleeplessness episodes with anxiety and crying spells and shouting spells, yelling spells, not taking care of the baby, sometimes harming the baby also. So it is that severe. All said and done, good counseling, postnatal care of the mother, postnatal counseling, and taking care of herself, her confidence level, and overall good antenatal care and postnatal care will definitely come with a good result.
Interesting. Madam, I believe postnatal care, as a part of the postnatal care, support from the and emotional connector from the husband is also very vital to avoid all such postpartum depressions and to have a better outcomes. But unfortunately, in societies or countries like India, we do not see paternity leaves as how we have maternity leaves. So, on this paternity leave and the absence of this, what is your take on this? Is it good to have paternity leaves, or is it what exactly it is?
What I feel is taking care of a person is truly personal. A woman, though she is employed, she gets up in the morning, does her course, does her work, evening again she does course, she takes care of the family, she sleeps for minimum hours, make sure she balances work-life balance. Similar way, a man also should balance work-life balance. Here in India, what happens is, when the woman is taking care, men are usually not subjected to that level of overlapping care. So what we need now is to train our boys, our male children, that it is 50-50% that you have to do your work. You should be good at washing utensils, you should be good at washing clothes, you should be good at cooking. There is nothing called women who are going to do all these things. In the next generation or today's generation, everybody has to do everything. There is nothing called a woman's work and a man's work. It is only about pregnancy and delivery that is exclusively written and rights off to women. 99%. Yes. There are men also having childbirth these days, so that is a different issue. And when you balance this work and home life, you need not need extra paternity leave. But yes, there are organizations like IKEA who give 6 months of paternity leave.
Wow.
There are some software employees who are getting 6 months of paternity leave. Yes, that trend is definitely there. But how many of them who are getting paternity leave are working along with their wives hand in hand? They are either doing other chores or they are just resting. Can be that way. So if a woman can do everything, a man also can do every household chore and activity and work. In fact, we here at Cuddles, we train men along with women how to cook healthy food, how to make breakfast, lunch and dinner in 15-20 minutes, how to train them how to take care of the baby, changing diapers, taking care of the baby, feeding the baby with a bottle. All these things we train them in our antenatal classes, which happen on Saturdays, and Sunday yoga sessions. We train them along with the wife for helping her out with the prenatal yoga. That eventually helps her out during labor, and the husband also helps her during the labor. Not only this, we have an active Wednesday group, that is the Lamas group, childbirth education group. Every Wednesday we have a class wherein the husband and the wife both are educated about childbirth and childbirth education. So all these things we make sure that we involve the husband so that eventually he will be also responsible for the child and child rearing. And we also train them how to give a good hand massage and leg massage to the pregnant women who are tired with leg pains and all that. So eventually it is not only pressing the mother-in-law's legs and husband's legs or father-in-law's legs, even the wife needs some kind of a care, which we eventually train them. So it all depends on the institute that you have booked yourself for antenatal care, wherein it is their responsibility to train husband and wife for the upcoming child and the child rearing. It should always be in sync with the family responsibility, making both the husband and wife responsible for keeping up with the family norms.
So I think, Doctor, this is a very eye-opener for all of our viewers that it's not, when it comes to work, there's no gender discrimination. Absolutely no gender discrimination at work except in carrying a pregnancy.
Yes.
So I think, this is really one of the eye-opener for all of our viewers out there. So I think it's not just about Pati Seva by the women. So men should also be trained on Srimati Seva.
Yes.
Only then the better outcomes can be seen is what we believe.
It is always mutual. For a happy family, every individual should have that space for themselves and the equal happiness space for the other person. They should look into their happiness and the other person's happiness. When you give and take in a mutual fashion, definitely you will have a happy family and happy outcomes.
Pretty wonderful. So, Doctor, despite all of these we do at KIMS, despite we care about their mental health, there exist still certain conditions where they must be treated with medications.
Yes.
So, as a pharmacology expert and also a psychology professional, I am very interested in knowing about connecting the medication as well as the mental health of a pregnant woman, especially during pregnancy. So, how safe is that, usage of medication during pregnancy for their mental health conditions and especially for their newborns?
Yes. So when we have to talk about any mental health condition, there are 4 levels. The first level is the counseling that I give. I try to give the couple counseling so that they get convinced and we see changes and everything. If everything is not happening by me, definitely if I identify any high risk factor, I convert the patient to a family counselor. We have Dr. Vanaja here, who is a family counselor, and she will take care of the family counseling. We have the prenatal therapist, prenatal yoga specialist, and all these people who talk to them, eventually find out their problems and spend time with them, try to solve the problems by words and discussions and counseling. If they find it is difficult, then we have the clinical psychologist, then comes the psychiatrist. We have Dr. Charan Tej here, who does a very good job in terms of giving milder medications. If they have anxiety, anxiolytics, if they have depression, antidepressants, if they have lack of sleeping episodes or sleeplessness, something to take care of that ailment. So third level is giving milder medications. Fourth level, if we find that the patient is out and furious and not getting controlled, definitely benefits of treatment outweigh the risk. So that is how we should categorize things. Even drugs, every drug, even paracetamol has benefits, has side effects.
Yes.
So the necessity is there, you have to use paracetamol. Otherwise you will die with fever. So the necessity of giving the medications, the side effect profile should outweigh the risk. So if you have to be given certain group of medications and they have beneficial effect, rather than looking at the risk, if the benefits are more, you should try those medications. And we have applied certain patients these kind of medications. We've had very good outcomes with the babies. Maybe around the delivery time, if we give a lot of antidepressants, the babies will be little depressed. So we can stop that medication and we restart after delivery. And antidepressants, higher doses can depress the baby, and their excretion into the breast milk is more. Then we try to give top feed. All these things are subject to the current situation that they are dealing with and the current clinical situation. So it is always in the best interest of the patient. The psychiatrist will take care of the mother and the child, and the medications that will be used, definitely the benefit should outweigh the risk.
So yes, we understand that with regards to the usage of the medication, it always is important outweighing the risk and benefit ratio when it comes to treating the pregnant women. So doctor, on a concluding note, what tools and techniques that you would recommend to pregnant women, or or those women who have become newly mothers, so to keep their mental health in line and their mentally fit?
So in India, it is the family physician culture. We obstetricians play a major role. So life revolves in pregnancy around the obstetrician and the family. They usually believe that everything else the obstetrician will take care. So it's primarily the responsibility of the obstetrician to give antenatal care, to give all the extra care that is needed and take them through labor and delivery and post delivery also care. In outside countries, it is not that. In outside countries, the care is always diversified. You have different people giving different care, and you have questionnaires that are related to mental health conditions. Anybody who goes to the OPD, they're given a questionnaire and you need to tick the questionnaire. Your crying episodes, your annoying episodes, your sleepless episodes, all these questionnaires are there. So when you have any doubt in that questionnaire or any numbering that is of difference, you will be diverted to a separate clinical psychologist or a therapist or anybody. Here the physician is the core of the treatment. So it is we who have to diagnose if there are any problems and then divert. It would be of immense help if we get the questionnaires here and try to inculcate into our practice. But then patients sometimes do not accept that these extra amount of questions are a burden on them. They are not very accepting in terms of mental health conditions. So we have to be very careful in terms of talking to them about these things. We have to double gauge ourselves, prepare them and treat them if possible in the same sitting. So India needs some time to go ahead in this direction. But yes, postpartum depression questionnaires are very important, and they are available at all clinical psychologist sessions and all those places where their mental health conditions are treated for. Initially, I felt the need to start off these in cuddles also, but then we as physicians, we are taking an extra load and effort to find out these problems and treat them accordingly. So questionnaires are not as important as a physical format. We always have that registered format in our brain.
Yeah, right. So thank you so much, doctor. And so to be concluding this thing, so viewers, this is all something about mental well-being during the pregnancy, and what Dr. Shilpi was mentioning all about mental well-being and mental health during pregnancy is awesome, and this is really an eye-opener session to all of you. And yes, as per the WHO definition of health, health is not just the absence of disease or infirmity. It needs to have a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being. But unfortunately, in countries like India, mental health is one attribute which is often the most neglected and least bothered. So at least from with this session, I believe you all get enlightened about what mental health is, and you would all enjoy each and every moment of your pregnancy, because motherhood is precious. Thank you so much. Thank you, doctor.